This is South Extension, a symbol of the fast-paced world that we live in. From big showrooms to street-side vendors, SouthX has it all. But behind all this activity in these buildings, the bylanes of this locality take us to a different world. Our exploration takes us back in time to the Delhi Sultanate. Heading north from the busy ring road into East Kidwai Nagar, one encounters this sprawling structure. Constructed on a hillock and surrounded by 4 chhatris is the tomb of Darya Khan Lohani. Darya Khan Lohani served as the Mir Adil, or the Chief Justice of all 3 Lodi kings, Bahlul Lodi, Sikandar Lodi and Ibrahim Lodi. Though a person of importance, his tomb is rather plain. There are no inscriptions or intricate patterns. In fact, the tomb is not even covered. However, despite its plainness and poor condition, the whole complex has a certain aura about it. The occupant of the tomb, even in his grave, seems to command the respect that he perhaps commanded during his life. Not far from this tomb lies the tomb of Kale Khan. According to inscriptions inside the tomb, it was constructed in 1481 AD. It is apparently the earliest dated tomb of the Lodi period. It occupies a much smaller area and the entrance to the tomb remains locked for most of the day. But the question arises, who rests inside the tomb? Being a square tomb, it must have belonged to a nobleman. It is widely conjectured that his name was Mubarak Khan. But there were 2 men of that name at the time, so whose tomb is it? It is often speculated that it belongs to the father of Darya Khan Lohani. A stone's throw away from the busy bus stand, the tomb has its fair share of visitors, for whom the adjacent lawns provide ample shade and relaxation. It seems that anonymity was the defining feature of the Lodi tombs. 500 meters from the tomb of Kale Khan, there are 3 more tombs. All of them share the square pattern of tombs which were built for noblemen, and all of them seem to belong to the Lodi Empire. But none of the tombs reveal the names of their occupants. Of these, the largest is the tomb of Bade Khan. The tomb of Bade Khan gives the impression of a double-story building on the outside, but on the inside, it is just one huge room with 5 tombs in it. The walls are plain, but there is a decorative star medallion in the center of the ceiling. Right next to this tomb lies the tomb of Chote Khan. This tomb is 1 story shorter, but its interiors contain lots of inscriptions and colorful designs. On the outside, there are a few blue tiles. Perhaps there were many more when it was first constructed. Surrounded by lawns, the monuments have received a decent amount of space around them. The tomb of Bure Khan is not so fortunate. It is the smallest amongst all the tombs and located a little further away. A low fence is what protects it from being swallowed by the local buildings. Due to its size and distance from the main tombs and its proximity to modern buildings, it is easy to miss this tomb. All these tombs have rather generic names. Who were these people? All that can be surmised is that they were important enough to be given magnificent tombs, but not so important. On the other side of the ring road, in part 2 of South Extension, lies yet another remnant from the past. Known as Masjid Moat, it is fairly famous and can even be identified on maps. Locating it is not much of a problem as almost everyone knows where it is located. According to legend, the then ruler Sikandar Lodi, while on a stroll, picked up a grain of moat and presented it to his Wazir Mian Bhua. The Wazir accepted the grain as a royal present. He then planted the grain in his garden and after replanting it several times, got a rich harvest. The sale proceeds from the crop were apparently large enough to finance the construction of this mosque. Although it is small and simple, devoid of any inscriptions, it still is an imposing structure. Except one, all entrances to the terrace and floors are locked. A narrow and steep staircase is left open for people to climb and catch an overhead view of the surroundings. Even though it is a protected monument, it hardly seems so. There are huge sacks of concrete inside its complex, and buildings have sprung up just within a few feet. It might seem that the Masjid Moat has been robbed of its rightful space with new buildings breathing down its neck. But considering what we're about to see, even this mosque seems rather fortunate. The last leg of our exploration takes us to the village called Kotla Mubarakpur. Famous for its timber and hardware bazaar, it seems like a living piece of history in itself. As soon as one enters its lanes, one is transported back to the 15th century. Despite new buildings, it has a rather medieval look. And that is because it really is. This village is named after Mubarak Shah, the son of Khizr Khan of the Sayyid dynasty. During his reign, Mubarak Shah faced revolts from neighboring states, and when he was not fighting, he was busy conducting raids to collect revenue. He was eventually assassinated in 1434. Considering that he ruled over Delhi, one would expect that he was given a burial quite literally fit for a king. And he was. His tomb was built on an octagonal pattern of tombs, like the ones found in the Lodi gardens. But his final resting place is anything but peaceful. His tomb lies deep inside the village. One has to navigate through the maze of dark and narrow gullies before reaching the burial site. The tomb is totally surrounded by the village buildings and is completely inaccessible. A fence surrounds its perimeter, and somewhere inside lies a forgotten ruler of the Sultanate. Ignored by authorities, it stands today only because of voluntary efforts of the local villagers. Surely, he struggled to keep his little state free. And as in life, even in death, he is condemned to fight for his little space. All the monuments in this locality are over 500 years old. Some deserted, while others have become a part of life. Some are well preserved, some in ruins, some famous and some mysterious, some known figures and some anonymous. Several generations have settled and resettled around them. There are no wide-eyed tourists gazing in awe at their magnificence, but they have stood the test of time and are a symbol of resilience in this ever-changing and dynamic enigma called Delhi.